Hey there, visionary business builders. Our goal with this platform is to have real life business conversations on how to succeed through the lens of visionary business builders with the scars and bruises to prove it. Today, you're in for a real treat. I'm buzzing to introduce you to the founder and chairman of TestHouse. He was born in Singapore, arrived in the UK at the age of about 5, studied electronics and engineering. His first job was with the government communications headquarters, which is an intelligence and security organization. The last 2 roles that he was with Centrica and Deutsche Bank. During this time, he noticed what was slacking was the integration of different parts of software and testing applications. Fast forward to 2000, he founded TestHouse. Today, they have offices across the US, Australia, Europe, and the Middle East. You've won the Queen's Awards for Enterprises and numerous software testing awards. I know success like this doesn't come without its fair share of wisdom. Listeners, you're in for a masterclass on how to build and succeed on a shoestring budget. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Inner Circle Boardroom Visionary Business Builders. You can find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Hit the notification bell icon. Sug, welcome. Let's get personal. I wanted to understand, what was your motivation to pursue entrepreneurship? Given that most people opt for stability and a role with a secure income, and clearly you were achieving that working with the likes of Centrica and Deutsche Bank. What took you down that path ultimately?
Even when I was working at Centrica and Deutsche, I was also on the side doing some other business. I was like representing certain manufacturers from China and India as their agents in the UK. So I would go around in the evenings working out, sending emails, letters to them and trying to sell the products. And I would sell that and build a business along those lines. So I knew that I could find a way to sell the services. And I knew that I knew IT quite well. And then I thought to myself, I should do the two together. So, and at the same time, when I was working at Centrica, I was in a very senior position and we were implementing a big solution and we used Accenture Consulting as the leading company. And it was one of the Accenture's biggest projects at the time. So working with them, I learned a lot from them in how a consultancy should work and how a consultancy should operate. And they pushed me as well. But at the same time, I learned a lot from them. And I realized at that point that the project that I was doing, different products put together, and you need to test it. And the testing became a big part of the whole project. And that's when I thought testing could be a good thing to do. And there is a lot more market for it. And I liked the idea of doing it. So the two together, I think, by Centrica time, I was pretty much made up my mind that I wanted to do that, building a company in testing. Then I started at Deutsche and I worked with them and I was putting in place a fairly large program in terms of disaster recovery. And I did a small project for them and then they liked what I did with the project. Then they said, look, take the whole gambit and do it for us. And at that point, I asked one of the managing directors that I worked for whether he would outsource it to me as a company rather than me working for him. And he said, no, I couldn't do that because it's too much hassle. Why do you want it? And I said, look, I want to do my own business at the same time. And I just needed some freedom, some time to go and meet people and things like that. And he said, guarantee me that you will deliver what you said you will. And then I will give you the freedom. We agreed on that basis. So I started to put some time aside to plan and prepare and everything for TestHouse during that time. But, that meant I'm working evenings and late hours to deliver what I was supposed to do for my full-time job. But I did both. And at the end, I came out of Deutsche and then there was something there that was waiting for me. But the decision to move, and as you mentioned, I was in a very lucrative and a very senior position within Deutsche. And it isn't an easy decision to give up all that because at that time, I had a mortgage, I had, all that to pay and my bills and everything. So it's not easy to suddenly say, right, okay, I'm going to give all this up and start a business. But that's what I wanted to do. And so I started the business with the savings that I had. And for about 2 years, I couldn't take any money out of the business. There wasn't any payment for me. But in 2 years' time, it slowly started to give me something. And my savings started to come very, very low. And then eventually it sort of came up in a curve kind of way. You could say that I was lucky, but yeah, that's the way it folded up. So I was lucky.
How old were you at the time?
28, 29, something like that.
Often you hear entrepreneurs giving advice that if you're going to step out of the corporate world, try to do it in a gradual process. Were you thinking, I'm going to give this 6 months? What was your confidence levels like at that time?
No, there was days when I would think maybe I'll give it another few months and then I'll go and look for another job, because I could get another job. And that was the only confidence that I had. I could go back to what I was doing. But don't get me wrong, I only started trading when I left. So I wasn't being paid by Deutsche while I was doing the business. I was doing things like websites, marketing, partnerships, putting things about company formation, all those kind of things is what I was doing prior to leaving. So when I left, I didn't have any income. So I was more or less similar to you in that sense.
Clearly, you started on a shoestring budget. Can you talk us through what were the first few steps you took to launch the business with limited resources? And how did you prioritize spending in those early days?
My prime duty was to find business. The initial thing that I did was to contact all my competition. I mean, it might sound strange, but I used to ring up my competition and I used to say, can we have a coffee? Can I have a chat with the chief exec or whatever? And put the proposition to them that I have got resources that I can put to work for you, and we can leverage each other. And if I get some business, I can use your resources. And then some of them bought into that. And there was probably about 10 CEOs that I knew at that time. And I was the only one that they would all talk to. They wouldn't talk to each other, but they would talk to me because they felt a little bit of trust in me, because I wasn't going after their business. That wasn't my plan, was to go after their business and understand their business and go. It was really sharing resources and building a business for myself kind of thing. And so that's one of the things that I did, to find whatever people that I have, to make sure that their billing, their utilization was high. And this was one route to do that. The other one was partnerships, and I built up a strong sense of partners. So we do testing, and to do testing, there are tools or software tools that will help you do testing. Similar to a plumber, he will need plumbing tools. We need software tools to do the testing. And these software companies that sell the tools, they need people to help them with services as well. So it was a scratch each other's back kind of situation. So if a customer needed testing, they would need our services as well as the company's tools. So sometimes a company will recommend us and they will sell the tools and they will recommend us. Sometimes we will sell the services and we'll recommend the tools. And all the time making sure that the customer is getting the best rather than just trying to look for short-term benefits. But that worked, and that started to give us some business. So once you got business, once you got a turn of business coming in, then the focus was on trying to recruit the right people to deliver and things like that. But my first focus was to find that was no cost to me apart from myself, my own time, trying to find business. And I had to sit there and find all these different routes. And one of the companies that I used to call was, a competition of mine. And there used to be, I remember a lady used to be there. She was head of HR, and I used to call her, and she would never answer the phone and she would never return my call. But I kept trying. And then one day the receptionist said, she's not here today, but I can put you through to somebody else. So she put me through to somebody else. And I had a good conversation with him, and immediately we started doing some business. And then a month or 2 months later, he said he's leaving, and he said he's going to work for Capgemini, and we'll be talking. So he went to Capgemini, and we talked, and we got a lot more business out of that. And he then left, and wherever he went, he took us with him. I think he went to work at Barclays and UBS, and he took us all there. So yeah, so that was me just ringing up. It wasn't any cost to me. But yeah, that worked.
At what point did you realize, actually, I'm onto something here now? Did Deutsche Bank help you get any leverage in terms of other clients?
There are people that have worked there were just very senior people, and they either worked at Deutsche or they moved on. And I followed them wherever I could to try and get some business. So there was obviously good things come out of that. But what you've got to remember is that you can't rely on that, because people who are very supportive at the initial stages, you soon find they wither away. and they don't want to take your call.
At what point did you know you were onto something?
I was contacting this competition, and I saw their business, and I knew these are the sort of things that I benefited from by being, in front of the competition. What kind of business are they doing? Who are they? How big are they? What are they doing right? What are they doing? Can I learn from them, kind of thing? And from there, I could understand that there was a big scope. I mean, some of them were quite big. The other thing was, 6 months or a year after I started, one of them wanted to buy me. And I thought, well, this must be a good thing. So they came and they spoke to me. It was a company called TestNet. They were part of an Israeli company called Amanet. And the guy who was the CEO of TestNet came to see me, and we talked, and we had lunch and everything else. And then he said, oh, by the way, will you be interested in selling? And I said, I haven't really thought about that really, because I've just got off the ground. But it's nice to hear that somebody wants to buy us, because I've been around for that long. And he said, I'll set up a meeting with the chairman of Amanet. Amanet is a listed company. So he came over, and I met him, and he said to me, you've got something there, what you're doing. You've got some people there. You've got business there. You've got some customers. You've got relationships, all of that. Come with us, and, you can be bigger with us. But, you can go on your own, but you find it very difficult. And so anyway, I listened to him. Obviously, I didn't sell the point, but that was probably one of the things that said, yeah, there's something here.
How competitive was the landscape when you entered at that time?
We were quite early on in the curve, I would say there were about 7 or 8 that was meaningful sort of competition. But then our biggest competition was the larger system integrators like Capgemini and people like that. They offered the full service, and testing was a part of it. And whereas we were like testing only, and we became an independent verification. So if you were buying an expensive car, you would take along somebody as an independent verification who can vouch for you that car's not had an accident or whatever. So somebody you'll take along if it's an expensive car. Similarly, you would want to have somebody, if you're investing your company's money onto improving some software, you want to make sure that this is going to be fit for the business, fit for their company. It's going to support the business for the money that they spend. So it's good to have independent verification, and that's the sort of thing that differentiates us from the larger SIs. But we were getting a lot of competition for the larger SIs, and that was one of those. Quite a few of those were the Indian offshore companies. And I decided that rather than compete with them, I'd rather do something which is I can compete with them directly. So we started our own offshore arm in India. And that's what sort of took us off a little bit to the next level, if you like.
What was your approach to enter new markets? How did you build such a strong team and also attract and retain them, particularly during those early stages?
Talent acquisition is a big challenge within small organization, but you will find exceptional talent who are not purely driven by money. You can find people who want to join you in your journey and who believe in your vision and think that they can be part of that journey and, win with that journey. If you can find people like that, then you've got, a team behind you. And I was lucky in that sense. There was one guy who joined probably about 6 or 8 months after we started. And, he was the first full-time employee. The rest of them we used freelance contract staff. And, he's now the CEO of the company.
What was your tactic in terms of hiring those first few roles that you hired?
That was the first role. I mean, he sort of blended. I mean, he was my right hand, if you like, or my left hand. And he was exceptional. He was very intelligent and very sharp, and he could pick things up very quickly, and he could support me wherever. And slowly he learned from me, learned from outside, and slowly rose up to the challenge. But I could see talent in him from the early days, and and I told him this is what I'm trying to do, and he stuck with me. I mean, there was times at the early stages, because he wasn't from an IT background, I could probably say that he would not have found a similar kind of role. But after he was with us in probably about 5-6 years time, when he'd learned quite a lot of it, he could have gone and left TestHouse and earned probably double the money that he was getting at that time. But he decided to stay because he knew we were on a journey and there was something happening towards the end. So
talk me through those numbers in terms of the headcount, how you scaled up, and at what point did you reach your first million?
We reached the first million in 3 years. So the first year was about, I don't know, 80,000, 90,000 pound turnover. And in the second year, we did 300 or 400,000. And then the third year, we did about a million. So it just sort of went quite quick after that. We, um, we were lucky in the sense we could get, if a customer wanted a specific kind of role done, I could find that person as an independent contractor, and we would fill that role with that independent contractor, because that allowed me the flexibility of not having somebody's salary on my back that I would have to commit to. But because as soon as the project is finished, he's off our books, if you like. So we used quite a lot of contractors. So the headcount would be low. I would say probably a handful, 4 or 5 in the first year, and then it grew like that. But we were using mostly contract staff, especially with some of the competitor companies. This is a funny point. I mean, I hope they're not listening to this, but one of the competition asked me for a resource. I didn't have it, and I got it from another competition, and I'm putting it there. Even today, even within my company, we have a team who will, if we want to enter a market, they will get everything perfectly ready, and then they will go and market. And I'm saying, no, go and market, build some things, but market, see if you got the opportunity, and then build it. But it's very hard to now. I'm not so deeply involved. I don't get so passionate about it now.
You said the first 2 years you didn't take a salary. What did that feel like, given that you had overheads, you had bills to pay?
Yeah, work kids. Yeah, I mean we're all together. The mortgage, and I did put my kids through private education, and that was the bills. There was quite a lot of bills that was mounting up at the time. So yeah, it was very hard. It was very stressful. And at one point, I mean, that wasn't then, but I cut my costs, tightened my belt, if you like, as much as possible. So I didn't drive a Ferrari.
How did you mentally have that resilience? Was it the vision that kept you going? Let's be honest, business is draining. It's like having a baby and having the responsibility of scaling a business.
It was quite hard. But I mean, I remember days when, in the end of the day, and I would have rung everybody, I would have called everybody, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I remember sitting in my room, and the current CEO walking in saying, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I've tried everything. I can't get anything." And he said, "It will come." So it just gives you a little bit of confidence, and go home for the evening, and then you come back again, start again. Anything like that has to be a long-term vision. Short-term will never work. But you do have your ups and downs. Lots of days when it was a lot. People see me and they don't see it on my face, and I'm not showing it, but it's inside you that it's eating away, thinking, what am I going to do?
What kept you going? Because you could have gone back into the corporate environment, given your background and skills.
I wanted it to succeed. I knew I could succeed. This was a short hurdle. This was not the big, winning the battle, but not winning the war kind of situation. So I was not winning the battles, but there was the war that's coming along, and there was a few battles along the way that will keep you, that you win, and then you feel happy, and then you move along, and then you'll get a bad one and a bad one. It happens that way. But when I looked at the end of the year, on the first year, I was looking at 60,000. I thinking, well, this is very low. This ain't going to give me enough to survive. Second year, I looked at it, and it was 300,000 or 400,000. It's not a lot. It's not a big amount, but it's a big jump from where I was. So that's nearly 5-6 times the turnover that I did last time. And then I did it again the following year. So it's that the big picture gives you that confidence, if you like, even though you have these small little glitches.
You didn't have any external investors. How were you able to scale and grow the business to what it is today, given that you've got approximately about 500 employees?
I don't want to say anything negative about investors, and I think there's a time for investors and there's a need for investors, and they're doing a great job. But it was a personal choice. It wasn't anything else. I wanted to do something by myself. I didn't want to use other people's money to build a business. I wanted to do it myself, and I always kept that in my head. A lot of people came to me and said, we can invest in you, or we can get you investors and things like that. And there was times when I was thinking, yeah, maybe I should. And there was people saying to me, look, Shug, it's better to own 10% of a large corporation than to own 100% of a small company. And I said, yes, I know that, but I don't want to. one of the reasons was I went to one of my competitions. And I was visiting there, and I went to see this. I was in the CEO's office, and I was talking to him, and somebody popped in. And he said, in the middle of our conversation, and he looked in and he said to the CEO, and he said, "Who are those guys sitting on the bench over there?" And he said, "They just come off a project." And they said, "So when are they going into a project next?" He said, "I don't know yet." They're not billing at the moment. And he said, "No, they're not." And he said, "Fire them." And he walked out. And I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "That's my investor." And I thought, no, I don't want this. So I didn't want that. I mean, not all investors are like that. They don't have that mentality, but this one did. But that's not the reason why I did it. I just did it because I don't want to have investors in the business. So how did I grow? I mean, it was very tight. It was extremely tight, especially when I was trying to move the business to a global level, and I wanted to go to the Middle East. And going to the Middle East, nowadays you can go business class, first class, all of that sort of things. But in those days, we have to book the flight well in advance, the cheapest one possible. And you have to book 5 or 6 meetings in a day. You have a breakfast with somebody, you'll have a lunch with somebody, you'll have dinner with somebody, and then have 2 or 3 meetings in the middle. So you're just constantly meeting, making sure that you utilize all the time in the world. Now I probably wouldn't have more than 2 meetings in a day. That's because I can afford to do that at this time, and I don't really want to, because you can't concentrate that much. But in those days you had to, and when you had to do it, you do it. And so, yeah, you cut the costs as much as possible, and you utilize relationships as much as you can to expand the business. So that's what we did in the Middle East. Fortunately for me, I had a mentor that came out of the blue. I do a lot of work on the charity side. It's called Education Business Partnership. They help young children get into employment, or help them with skills and interview techniques and work experience and all that sort of stuff, preparing for the world work. So I was on the board. So they asked me to go to a meeting, and there was 50 people around the table, and I was sitting next to an elderly gentleman, and we all introduced ourselves. And it came to him. He was sitting next to me, and he came right at the end. And he said, "My name is Andrew Buxton. I'm the patron of this charity for the global network. And I used to be chairman of Barclays." I was really shocked. So I went up to him and afterwards, and I said, in my job, I'm running a business, and trying to meet even the mid-level managers of Barclays is a real challenge. You know, they're too busy that you can't meet you. And it's a pleasure to meet someone like you as the chairman. And he asked me, "Do you have a business card?" And then I met him again. I followed him through and talked. And I asked him whether he would come and help me, guide me along in my journey. And he said yes, he would. He's now the chairman of TestHouse, and I'm the founder and the vice chairman. And he's been a real tower of strength as well during various times, guidance and everything else. Emotional guidance, spiritual guidance, financial guidance, all of that. So I was lucky in that, getting that mentor.
I think having someone who has that corporate finance background, has done a lot of deals, raised money, understands how it works on the other side, it's like gold dust, isn't it?
I remember in the 2008, when we had the global recession, and all I was getting was phone calls from my existing customers saying, "Sorry, Shug, we're going to have to cancel. We're going to have to cancel. We're going to have to cancel." And I was, it was just dire. I was going up, I was looking on top of a hill, and all of a sudden I was looking very down, a very steep hill. And that's sort of time when Andrew came into the picture, and he came and he was ringing me once, and he said, "Shug, what's wrong?" And I said, "Everything is just falling apart at the moment." And he said, "Let me come to see you." And he came the next day, and he came and sat down, and he said, "What's wrong?" So that's one of the lessons I learned, when you're really up against the hill and you're feeling the whole world is on your shoulder. Now, he said to me, "What are the problems?" And I said, "What, you want me to list it?" And he said, "Yes." So I started listing the problems, and I found that there was only about 3 or 4, because there wasn't anything major. It was just my mind making myself into that. And I told him the 4, and he said, "Look, item number 1, you can't really do much about. Just forget it. Number 2 is the finances. Let me look into the finances and let me see if you need to be worried. Let me go through it properly and understand." And I said, "Okay." And then the third thing, you can do this. Fourth one, you can do this. And I walked away for about 6 months. I was perfectly fine. Up until then, the world was on my shoulder. So somebody like him helped me quite a lot in that sense, and he also helped me in going to the Middle East because a lot of the senior, mid to senior level people from Barclays had actually left Barclays and were working in the Middle East as sort of CEOs of organization, and they all wanted to meet him because he was the chairman and they looked up to him. And quite a lot of them came to see him and introduced me, and we started to do some business there as well. So it was quite helpful. When he came on board, he came with me to see the customers. And this is a man who used to go in a private jet, and here's me taking him on an economy. But he came, and he's very close to me actually. There was one flight, he was in an economy seat, and he's a very tall man. He's 6'3", 6'4". So he was sitting on an economy seat, and he couldn't even put his leg in between. And he had his briefcase on, and he was sitting like this, and I couldn't hack it. So I called the attendant, and I said, "Is there any chance you can give him a business class ticket?" And she goes, "Yeah, you can upgrade. You have to pay." I said, "Fine." So I paid for him and upgraded him to a business class. That's as far as I go. There's good things that can come from there.
On that note, for aspiring entrepreneurs who are facing their major setback, what advice would you give to them that would help them?
If you're up against the wall, one of the things is to list the problems down, or at least talk to somebody and say, these are the problems, and get another perspective of those. Because you may think I've got about 200 problems, but you may have about 4 or 5. And there are things that you can do to fix them. So that's one thing I would do. Try and get a mentor onto the board. It will cost you a lot of money. But there are people who do want to help, who do want to do something back to the community, support somebody. So you can find a mentor, find a good mentor. And that's one thing. And one of the things I would say is really know your risks. I've been preaching something within my organization of late, which is to say the 4 Ks, which is 1, know yourself and know your customer, know your partners, and know your competition. And, you've got to know all of them really well. Know your competition doesn't mean you want to go out there and cut their throats. You just really want to know what they're doing. How are they succeeding? What can you learn from them? And why are they failing? If you know they're failing, why are they failing? So you don't do the same thing. Know yourself. You really got to do your SWOT analysis and know what you're good at and what you can do, and focus on the things that you can do. And know your customer. I mean, I was telling within TestHouse that we probably are 70% of where I would want us to know our customer. I would want to know our customer 100%, and I really want to push that forward. So know your customer and know your partners. You may find that there are partner organizations or organizations that can benefit from leveraging you and you leveraging them, and just need to identify what that could be. And that could be a route to market that, What
do you think were the critical factors or the secret ingredient that contributed to your success, that set your venture apart from those that didn't survive?
The people around you is very key. You can't do it yourself. And I knew from the beginning that I'm not an experienced CEO. I knew that. I'm not, because I have not done it before. And that's the thing that you've all got to learn. If you're a budding entrepreneur, you're saying, yeah, this is how I'm going to do it. But nobody's taught you how it should be done. Nobody's told you. You don't know what good looks like. If you know what good looks like, then you will do it. Otherwise, you'll sit there and think, yeah, what I'm doing is top. This is me. And so you need to get advice, or at least know what each department, whether you're looking at HR, talent acquisition, if that's a problem for you, find people in that industry, talk to them, find out what are the things that they're doing better, and then try to incorporate that. Even today, we're still learning. I don't know all of it, but I am willing to learn. People can advise me, and I will listen. If it means it's good for me, I'll do it. Don't think you know everything. That's the advice I'll give you.
What emerging trends do you think will define the industry over the next decade, and how should companies prepare for that? Or how are you?
We're doing that at the moment. I have told the leaders of my company, you have to find an AI-based solution that can do everything that we do. That is the target. So an AI solution can do the testing from start to finish. They're saying it can't be done. And I said, well, think about it. Because somebody's going to come up with it, and then we're going to stand there with the eggs on our faces saying, why didn't we think of that? So at least spend some time thinking about it, How can you be replaced using technology? If you can, learn about it, find out about it, and try and do something about it, in the sense, join it rather than fight it, because you can't win fighting it. I mean, if AI can do testing, then we should be better off using the AI and doing the testing rather than competing with it. I can't see a long time before somebody does say, okay, here's an AI solution that replaces all of testing for you. We are working on it. We are working on a solution that could do some of it with gaps, which is fine. Those gaps we can address later, but we are working on some of it. So somebody might come beforehand, but at least we've tried. We have done significant research into that, and we're probably going to release a product fairly soon in conjunction with Essex University in the UK and with IIT in India. Combined effort trying to, hopefully that will be revolutionary, but we'll have to wait and see.
What key approach would you modify if you were starting out today on this journey?
Quite a lot, I think. There's quite a few, but all of it was because I didn't know it at the time. As I said, people coming and telling me that you could do it this way and it will be better. For instance, we had the offshore, but we didn't leverage it properly. Now we do quite a lot of our admin, accounts, all of those costly elements out of our offshore arm in India, which saves us a lot of money. They very competent people that I got there to do that. So it's learning as I go, and there's quite a lot of changes. And I mean, if I'd have done that a long time before in terms of the accounts from offshore, because the offshore was in existence quite a long time, it's only in the last 4 or 5 years that we started to move that accounts over there. I could have saved myself quite a lot of money in that. Similarly, people come to me and said, at the time I only had sales people. And, somebody came to me and said, look, you need sales and account management. You need somebody to go and what you call hunt new business, and you need somebody to farm on existing business. Something that I wasn't wholly aware of. And I thought, well, the sales guy is there, he can sell. But then that has made a significant impact in holding on to our existing customers. So it's quite a lot of things that I have learned over the years. As I said, the main thing is to sit down and listen to people who know what they're talking about. If I could go back, I think I would be more successful, but I won't have the same energy now.
Do you think about acquisitions?
We have had conversations with a handful of people for acquisitions. The financial muscles only started to build up over the last 4 or 5 years. And as that happened, we've started to look, but we've just not clicked with the right one.
Yeah. Just, what are you finding in terms of valuations?
I mean, I can value myself at quite a lot, but it's what somebody else is prepared to pay, right? And that's what makes the difference. But my CFO tells me that valuation-wise, you're looking between 10 and 12 times EBITDA. Would somebody pay me that? I guess probably, because we've got a lot more value add, because we're a global organization and everything else. Trying to set up a new entity in Middle East and have clients and all that just take a lot more. So that all those things will add value.
We could probably have a separate conversation on that, but I am conscious of time here. If people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way forward?
I'm on LinkedIn. There can't be that many people with Shug Saharivan on there. Or you can email me, shug@testhouse.net.
I'll include your link as well. Look, folks, that's all for today's episode. If you found this valuable, you're in for a treat. We've got a treasure trove of interviews with visionary business builders, all sharing their hard-earned insights. Don't miss the new releases. Subscribe to the Inner Circle Boardroom channel via LinkedIn or YouTube. Hit the notification icon, stay in the loop for our next deep dive with a visionary business builder. Until next time, keep aiming high and building smart.